Since my last Overwatch League news video almost a fortnight ago, there have been a ton of new announcements that have certainly created some very interesting discussion, and today I hope to catch everyone up if you've missed any of it. Just before I get started though, I just want to point out a couple of dates from this week that will have, and indeed already have had an impact on where players will eventually end up. First of these relates to the Monday that just passed, the 11th of November, as this was the final day for teams to pick up the options of any of their players who were previously listed as on team option deals, therefore meaning that all players now should either be signed or free agents. The other date I want to draw people's attention to is today, Friday the 15th of November, as from what I've read this is the date that all teams should have a minimum of 8 players signed on their rosters, so you can probably expect a few announcements from teams like London ahead of this deadline. With that now said though, let's go on to the information I'll be discussing in this video, and for clarity, this time I've decided to break it down between each of the teams separately, which I'll leave timestamps to down in the description below. This of course means that we start with the Atlanta Reign, who will reveal both players who will be joining the team, as well as a couple who will be departing. Firstly, they revealed that from the Atlanta Academy, they were promoting both Hawk and Gator to the main roster. Hawk has been an incredibly talented off-tank for the Atlanta Academy in 2019, with consistently strong performances across a variety of heroes that have earned him high praise from a majority of Contenders viewers, with many now considering him as one of the best Western off-tanks right now. This promotion therefore is not surprising at all, and after FRD's great end of season for the Reign, the team looks set to have 2 great options at off-tank that should cover them across any meta, and allow them to adapt to whatever comes their way. As for Gator, his promotion comes as no surprise either after his excellent end of season playing Sigma on the main roster, having been previously on a 2-way contract. He has further established himself in 2019 with more great performances on the Atlanta Academy, and aside from giving Pokpo a competitive challenge for a starting spot, it's possible the team could decide to run 2 tank pairs to utilise in different situations, adding an extra dimension to an Atlanta team that's looking to cement its challenge for 2020. You may have noticed though I specifically only talked about the options of having Hawk and FRD at off-tank, and that is because Atlanta also announced they were parting ways with Dako. His time on the Reign has been a bit of a rollercoaster, with his off-stage attitude issues seeing him benched, despite showing when he played that he was one of the best off-tanks in the league during the first few stages, with his diva play at the time in my opinion arguably carrying Atlanta, particularly in their victories over New York. That said, this seems like quite a natural conclusion to his time on the Reign, with the team wishing to focus in a different direction following the promotion of Hawk, although with his proven talent I imagine Dako will receive a lot of attention, potentially from teams like New York or Seoul, making this a decision that I think both Dako and Atlanta will be happy with in the end. He wasn't the only departure though, as Atlanta also said farewell to M-Layer. Considering some of the rumoured moves that the team was looking to make at the DPS position, this news wasn't too shocking to hear, even if it is a little sad to see. M-Layer may not have always kept a regular place in the starting lineup on the Reign. When he did play, he often performed well, and his quality was certainly validated at this year's Overwatch World Cup, where alongside Shadowburn he put on a number of excellent displays. I'd be quite surprised if he didn't receive an offer from another team, with even now the potential for him to pair alongside his Russian teammate Shadowburn, who is also a free agent. But his status is something that personally I'm looking to keep an eye on. The last bit of news out of the Reign is their most recent, and relates to one of their previously rumoured acquisitions at DPS, and that is the announcement they'd signed Edison. Previously a member of GC Busan, Edison's a nutty DPS player who totally deserves his Overwatch League chance from what I've seen. He's an incredibly versatile player, who on paper might form a nasty DPS duo alongside Erster, but could end up being one of the most deadly pairings in the league, so many Atlanta fans should get excited to see what he can do in 2020. Now we move on to the Boston Uprising, who comparatively have been a little quieter. However, like Atlanta, their main news comes in the form of promotions from their academy roster, as the Uprising called up Swimmer and Mufin. Swimmer is a very promising upcoming main support that's gathered quite a following for his stream, and consistently good performances on the Uprising Academy. In light of Kellick's leaving, this looks to be a great replacement for Boston that follows a traditional pattern, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the Overwatch League next season. As for Mufin, it's important to first note he'll be on a 2-way contract, meaning that he probably won't have as much stage time as others, but seeing as how the Uprising have often upgraded their 2-way players in the past, this should be a promising first step for him. Mufin really caught a lot of people's eyes during the Team Canada World Cup trials, where he was outstanding and honestly deserved a call-up over Note in my opinion. A lack of consistent playtime up to now is probably the biggest question mark surrounding him, but hopefully this new opportunity gives him a great chance to show his worth and eventually earn a full contract with Boston. With no news coming from the Chengdu Hunters, Dallas is the next team that we come to, and I only have a couple of moves to report from the field. One which came as no surprise whatsoever, and another that caught everyone off guard. Following the departure of OGE and a trade for Decay, it had been heavily rumoured that Guangzhou would be joining Dallas, and lo and behold last week we learned that this was in fact true. And from Shanghai's point of view, I am very curious to see who they now bring in to replace him. Guangzhou's move to Dallas rekindles his tank partnership with Note, which considering what they were able to achieve in 2018 makes me quite hopeful, especially when you factor in the experience and personality of Guangzhou, which I think will do the world of good for the field as a whole. Whilst he certainly isn't at the same level as OG from my perspective, he's one of the better options that was available on the market, and hopefully will lay a good foundation of consistency at main tank to help Dallas achieve success. Achieving that success though won't be possible without further star investment, and the big shot that was unveiled the other day was that the field would sign Element Mystics Doha. a move that no one really saw coming. On paper, I absolutely love this move, as whilst a lot of attention was placed onto Sparkler Element Mystic, I think too often people overlook Doha and the impact he was having, particularly in setting up Sparkle for his own success, especially with his fantastic Sombra. A potential partnership with Decay could finally make Dallas a serious threat, and so far the roster that the Fuel have announced should give Dallas fans cautious optimism that 2020 might see them avoid drama and more consistently perform to challenge for a playoff spot. The Florida Mayhem have also been quiet in terms of official news, so next up are the Guangzhou Charge, who by contrast have been one of the busiest teams over the past 2 weeks. First up, they revealed to their fans' relief that Nero, Eileen, Happy and Shu would all be remaining on the team for 2020, having all been re-signed. This really shouldn't come as any surprise, as if you were to ask people who the 4 best players on the Charge were in 2019, these are the 4 names you'd probably hear back. In my opinion, all of them are incredibly talented and still haven't realised their full potential, that they were only beginning to show towards the end of last season. So seeing how they grow and develop into next season is going to be exciting to watch, but also allows the Charge to keep a core of synergised talent as they join Rio and Chara as returning players. However, with these players being re-signed, there are also others who have been released. The first of these is sadly Fraggy, who will now be on the market to try and find a new team. It's really unfortunate that 2019 couldn't see him capitalise on what was a fantastic showing at the 2018 Overwatch World Cup, with very few stage appearances. And whilst I hate to say it, it does appear that his quality has somewhat declined since then. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure he lands a player spot on any of the rosters now, but perhaps this gives him a chance to look at coaching if he wishes to. Ultimately though, I hope he does find a place and success somewhere as we head into 2020. As well as Fraggy, Bischu has also been released, with Guangzhou clearly wanting to go in a different direction at off-tank. Again, this is unfortunate to hear, as Bischu is certainly a player who is talented, but we just haven't had the opportunity to see him show off his ability. I like Fraggy though, I think there's a little more hope for Bischu finding a new team, and I personally think that perhaps a team like Dallas would make a nice fit, given the number of recent Korean acquisitions they've made to make this a very mixed roster, but we'll have to wait and see. The biggest surprise though, of those released, is certainly Hotba. I've been saying for a while now, but I think he's been the key foundation of the Charge roster for most of last season, and was undoubtedly in my mind their most reliable and consistent performer. I think this highlights that the team definitely wants to move in a different direction at this position, but I'm certain Hotba will receive some interest given his proven quality alongside his flexibility. The 2 other departures from Guangzhou were Only Wish, who's been released, and also Rice, who's decided to retire. Both are players who I didn't see much play of, and I don't know too much about, but hopefully wherever they end up moving forward they find success. To go full circle though, we now need to look at the 3 new signings that will be joining the Charge in 2020, which were just announced yesterday. The first of these is Neptuno. It's great to see he's finally got an opportunity following his exit from Philadelphia, and in theory I think it's a fit that works well for the team. Whilst the coaches and org may really like Chara, it's fair to say that his performances have not been brilliant up to now, and Neptuno's arrival should hopefully bring more experience and reliability to the main support position. He's not the only new arrival though, with the team promoting Wire from their academy roster. I haven't seen him play, so I can't comment on his ability from a personal standpoint, but from what I have heard, the team and coaches really like his potential and want to develop him at the flex support position behind Shu, so they can have a talented option if needed, which sounds quite promising and hopefully turns into a great project for the Charge. The last player being added is Krong, formerly of O2 Blast. He is the player that Guangzhou are clearly putting their weight behind at the off-tank position for next season, and it'll be very interesting to see if this is a decision that works out for them in the end. I've seen a little bit of Krog's play in Korean contenders, and it was his D that particularly impressed me. From the quality that I've seen, I'd go as far as to say he is one of the highest potentials at the off-tank position from contenders, so I think this is a great pickup for the Charge, but of course he'll need to back up this promise with strong displays on stage next season. Moving from one Chinese franchise to another, we can now take a quick look at the Hangzhou Spark, who've given us a few bits of information lately, after announcing already they were keeping most of their players as a core from 2019. To add to this collection of players, the Spark have decided to re-sign Bazzi, in a move that makes a lot of sense. Throughout the season his appearances were sporadic, especially towards the end of the season by stage 4 and the post-season. He proved himself to be a very valuable member of the roster that performed consistently well, so as I said, the decision to keep him makes complete sense. That said, they did announce one departure, and that was Revenge. This is understandable as he spent most of last season on the bench behind Bebe, with nothing being amazingly shown during his occasional appearance, to necessarily warrant him staying on the roster. With the team revealing in a recent video they really wanted to focus in on the core players they were keeping, he was probably seen as an unnecessary extra, and therefore released, but I'm sure he still has potential, and it'll be interesting to see if he gets another Overwatch League offer. Rounding out their current announcements, Hangzhou revealed they were bringing in Ye to assist on their coaching staff following the departure of Supreme. I can't attest to his ability, but he's clearly built up a lot of experience on teams like Lucky Future Zenith, as well as the Florida Mayhem, so I'm sure he'll be a useful member to their coaching staff. As for Houston Outlaw fans, there isn't too much to say, except for the news that the team was releasing Bunny after 2 years with the team. Having not played for nearly all of last season, it seemed clear that the Outlaws were happy with their current main and flex support duo of Boink and Raucous, with Bunny struggling to get a look in, and if I'm being critical, his performance for Canada didn't inspire too much confidence either. I'd be honestly surprised if he got another Overwatch League offer, with him perhaps returning to contenders, or instead transitioning into another area like coaching, but we'll have to see what happens. And for those interested as well, last night saw the finalisation of a deal that saw Immortal sell the Houston Outlaws to the Beasley Broadcast Group, so hopefully all the drama surrounding their management behind the scenes in 2019 can be firmly put behind them, with hopefully a much better infrastructure now being put in place. Also, if Houston fans are still worried about the status of Dante, it was confirmed last night that he was signed on for 2020 from pretty much the beginning of the off-season, so unless a big trade offer comes in, don't expect to see him anywhere else. From Houston we can take our eyes to the first of the two LA teams I want to talk about, with the first being the LA Gladiators, who up to now have been enjoying, I believe, one of the best off-seasons so far. Aside from their headline tank acquisitions, they've continued to make a splash, first of all in the coaching department. I mentioned in one of my previous news videos about how Curryshot had left the Guangzhou charge. Shortly afterwards it was confirmed that he was joining Deeper on the Gladiators coaching staff. He's clearly very experienced and it appears that he's popular amongst many of the pros, so this looks to be a welcome move, and one that it sounds like he deserves. This isn't the only coaching addition being made though, as it was also revealed yesterday that Face would also be joining their staff. This Australian has been honing his coaching skills across the world in the contender scene, first with Sydney Drop Bears in Australia, then with NRG in NA, and most recently with Talent Esports in the Pacific. Everything I've heard about him has been overwhelmingly positive, particularly from his time on Talent with their recent success, so hopefully this new opportunity proves to be a great step both for himself but also for Gladiators. With the coaching staff taking shape, the only major hole left for the LA Gladiators was at their empty DPS position. However, the past 2 weeks have certainly seen this be rectified with two new signings here. The first came as a surprise to many, as Birdring was unveiled to be joining the team. After his inconsistent play throughout his Overwatch League career, with 2019 marking a major low, many had come to the conclusion that Birdring was washed and would struggle to find a new team after being released by London. But this decision by the Gladiators to bring him in at their most needed position must suggest that DP and others think with better coaching, they can receive more reliable play from Birdring that matches his highs and potential that was shown during the odd moments of 2018. Ultimately, it's a big gamble that has the potential to go either way, and would benefit them greatly if he finds form, but I think they certainly need to find further cover at DPS to make sure they are prepared if the worst should happen. Indeed, they did address this somewhat, as they've also made their second DPS signing in Mirror. He was signed from the Uprising Academy in Contenders as a very promising projectile DPS player with a great Widow, who whilst young has a very high ceiling that could be brought out under the right coaching and development. Again, I've heard very promising and positive thoughts generally from people who know him, so I think the Gladiators fans should get excited to see what he can do for the side in 2020. This wasn't the last player acquisition though, as the Gladiators have also revealed another support player who will be joining the team, and that's his Paintbrush. Now I have to admit I don't know much about him, but he spent the last couple of years on the Mayhem Academy, and more recently Revival, and looks to be quite a good main support. I doubt he'll be running for a starting gig, but apparently his performance during the trials was one of the key factors in him being signed, so if you have faith in DP, Paintbrush looks to be a promising backup that should help the team if called upon. Although, finishing now with the LA team on the rise means we now must look at the other LA side that most see being on the decline, and that obviously is the Valiant. Most of this off-season hasn't been pretty viewing for Valiant fans, as they've seen a lot of their best players being released or moved away, and this has continued most recently as the team announced the departure of Fact Fiction. I get that they're taking more of a budget approach, but this is a move I still don't get. I don't imagine Fact was on the biggest contract in the world to begin with, and he clearly showed last season what a major impact his inclusion had on the roster. Still, whilst he might have to wait until mid-season to announce himself back on the Overwatch League stage, I'm sure he'll receive interest as a proven quality Western main tank. However, it's not all doom and gloom, as the Valiant finally showed off some of the players that will be on their roster for 2020, even if they perhaps leaked them beforehand. So it was revealed that Apply, Dreamer, Lastro and Slur would all be on the team next year, alongside McGravy being re-signed as well. I'll start with the most recognisable names, as it's great to see McGravy and Apply being reunited on the Valiant next season. Both have shown during their limited opportunities that they certainly have potential, which is one of the key focuses of the Valiant moving forward, and now with the opportunity for more consistent experience, they may be able to improve even more. Dreamer is a main tank from Australian Contenders side Sydney Drop Bears, who apparently earned this opportunity for some great performances during trials. He's not someone I know too much about, but apparently he was a key member of the Drop Bears at the start of this year, and hopefully he can make a splash on his new team now as well. Lasher is a flex support from Sky Foxes, who again I haven't seen much play of, but it appears that the reception to this pickup has largely been positive. Having watched a few highlights, he has a really strong Ana, and was one of the Sky Fox's best players, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do on the Valiant. This just leaves Slur, who to those who don't know will add to the Overwatch League British contingent. He's been playing in European Contenders on Samsung Morningstars, showing some good potential, and from watching the UK World Cup trials, he was able to show off his quality there as well. As a fellow Brit, I'll be hoping that he performs well in Out, and getting a contract is a great job on his end, but I can't say for certain how this move is going to go. These sorts of pickups further give me that Boston Season 1 feeling for the Valiant, but I hope their fans can try and rally behind, as I know these largely unrecognisable names will worry many of them, but even if just half of their players pan out, 2020 and beyond could look really bright for this team. Whilst London have certainly been teasing a lot of roster moves over the past couple of days, with official announcements likely coming from today and over the weekend, the only official move they've actually made since my last video is with their release of Quartermain and Badosin. At first I was rather surprised to see yet more Spitfire players getting dropped, but considering that aside from Krillin, they've completely cleaned house to rebuild, it does make sense that they want to start almost entirely fresh at the support position. Quartermain has definitely been a surprise package who has impressed me with his Lucio play, but saw him win the main support position over Nuss in 2019. I'm not sure where he could end up, but I reckon he certainly is capable of taking a bench spot if offered one. As for Badosin, it's been clear for the past month or so that he's not been happy with London and wanted to leave. That wish has now been granted as he departs, and it looks likely he'll be going to join another Overwatch League team soon, potentially Seoul, so hopefully his performance will be more akin to a 2018 than its inconsistent 2019. Both New York and Paris have also not dropped anything new, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that after their full roster reveal, the Philadelphia Fusion don't have much more news to report in relation to player pickups, but they have made a few changes to their coaching staff for 2020. Christopher has been re-signed as an assistant coach, and he'll be joined by Moby Dick, as well as Sater, who is coming in as an analyst. Overall, the reception to this has been positive, with Christopher's return a welcome one it seems. Moby Dick has been praised for his time on Toronto, and makes a move to Philly alongside Ivy, while Sater has been progressively earning coaching plaudits after his time on Team Gigante and the Paris Eternal. Overall, all three look like they can be great parts of head coach's KDG's coaching staff, and if they can get this Fusion roster firing on all cylinders, then they could be one of the very best teams in the league. Speaking of coaching additions, this is the only bit of news that has come out of the San Francisco Shock camp, as they brought in Arachne yesterday. For those who weren't aware, Arachne is the coach of Talon Esports, and seeing how dominant they've been in Pacific tenders, as well as having some impressive runs at both the Pacific Showdown as well as the Gauntlet, he's totally earned this opportunity. It's because of this that I think that his addition to the Shock will be a very welcome one, which should make a premier coaching staff led by Krusty arguably even better, and I'll be interested to see what impact he can have. Now we arrive at the Seoul Dynasty, who whilst I expect to announce a few departures soon, have also been rather quiet over the past couple of weeks. We did talk about two more departures though, with the release of Jexa and Coach Wynot. Jexa leaving didn't surprise me much, as for all the hype before 2019, he failed to live up to expectations on Seoul last year. Whilst his short calling may have been coveted, in my opinion, he was clearly and consistently outplayed by Toby. So with Toby returning, it makes sense why they're happy to let Jexa go and free up more space and money on the roster. But I'm sure he'll find another home soon that will hopefully see him perform better. Wynot meanwhile has been dropped from the coaching staff, and whilst I don't know too much about his ability or impact, the Dynasty made a point to commend his effort and dedication. In his place though, the team have now acquired former Washington Justice head coach Wizard Young. Putting the means aside, I think this is a good pickup for the Dynasty that hopefully makes the coaching staff better, with Wizard Hyung hopefully using his experience and ability from a strategic standpoint to help Seoul find better success in 2020. This brings us on to the Shanghai Dragons, who have been one of the more vocal teams over the past couple of weeks, first of all announcing that they would be following Hangzhou and keeping a core collection of their players. These players staying with the team in 2020 are DM, Ding, Dia, Envy, Gaguri, Izayaki and Luffy. I don't think there can be too many complaints with this decision, as it keeps a synergised group that the team can look to build around for next year, with their DPS, off-tank and flex support positions looking healthy, although with some of the rumours suggesting they're picking up another off-tank, having 3 looks a little odd. Of course, if these are the players staying, those missing here were likely leaving, and it was announced shortly afterwards that Coma had been released. This is more of a head-scratcher, as I thought he was fantastic on the Dragons last season, with his Mercy play clearly some of the best in the league. It seems though that the team want to go in a different direction, so I'll be curious to see who they now bring in at main support, but hopefully Coma's successful 2019 can land him another opportunity with a different squad. I should probably also mention that whilst Dia is remaining on the Shanghai roster, he's now been put onto a 2-way contract, meaning they will likely be spending most of next season on the team's academy side. This suggests to me that the team wants to put the full effort and resources into their 3 remaining DPS, whilst allowing Diaz to develop in contenders, being cover for them if desperately needed, and it'll be interesting to see if he gets another opportunity on the Overwatch League stage. I say 3 remaining DPS, as alongside Diem and Ding, it was finally officially confirmed that the Dragons had traded for Fleta from Seoul. On paper this looks like a great move for Shanghai, as whilst Ding is an excellent Farah and Sombra, the rest of his hero pool was a bit lacking, but now the potential and flexibility of running Diem and Fleta looks immense, and makes the Dragons a team I'm fascinated to see on stage. Hopefully this move for Fleta also works out well, as I think he never really fulfilled his full potential on Seoul, and looked to be stagnating a bit in 2019, so this change of scenery is probably good for him. Although I do wonder who plays for Doomfist on this team now, with Youngjin not there anymore. We now only have 3 more teams to cover, beginning with the Toronto Defiant, who've been arguably the most active off-season team so far, and this definitely continued since my last news video. With all the players coming into the side though, others were expected to leave, and one of these was Neko. This split didn't come as much of a shock, following the acquisition of Kariv. That said, Neko is still a very talented flex support player, that I'm certain will make a great addition to other rosters, so I'll be keeping note of where he ends up. But putting aside Neko, every other announcement from the Defiant has been in regards to players and coaches that will be with the team in 2020. Starting with the players, it was expectedly revealed that Mangachu would be staying with the team, a move that makes total sense given the Canadian focus that the team has made an effort to recruit for this off-season. And whilst he has been quite inconsistent, he certainly still has the potential to bring quality at some specific heroes that could prove valuable for the team next season. Whilst Mangachu remains re-signed, the team has gone on to sign a further 3 players who have been previously rumoured to make up what looks to be the rest of their roster for 2020. In keeping with the Canadian focus, the first 3 of these were Surefall. Since becoming a free agent, this seemed like the most obvious destination for Surefall, and it had been heavily rumoured beforehand. Whilst he didn't perform as well in 2019 when compared to his 2018 campaign, he is still an incredibly talented DPS player, but now alongside Agilities, Mangachu and Logics makes one of the juiciest Western DPS attacks in the Overwatch League, which I'll be fascinated to watch next season. Not to mention his addition probably will bring a lot of new fans to Toronto as well, just due to his popularity. The next player they went on to sign was Kellex. Having been released by the Boston Uprising, Kellex probably knew that a strong showing at the Overwatch World Cup would be a great way of him earning his next hour opportunity, and boy did he deliver. On a very impressive Danish side, he put in a number of fantastic displays, and it probably convinced the Defiant that he was the right man to pair alongside Kareev in this aggressive off-season project that they've taken heading into 2020, which I hope after an underwhelming end at Boston, Kellex can now look to improve on. The third and final pickup was the player who was first rumoured to be heading their way, and that is Nevix, previously of the San Francisco Shock. Every position besides off-tank had been addressed up to this point this off-season, so adding in someone with potential and talent of Nevix looks at first glance to be an excellent move. Whilst he hasn't had many opportunities to show off his quality on stage, his few appearances have looked really promising, and now coming in as a full-time starter, we can finally get a look at whether the behind-the-scenes hype was warranted. As for coaching moves, the team has re-signed the analyst Baroy, which is seen to have gone down quite well, looking at the general response, before also unveiling Allbless as their new coach who will be joining the staff. Given his previous work alongside Feifei at Paris, it appears he's brought in someone he can trust and has faith in. Overall on paper, the Toronto Defiant look like an incredibly exciting Western team who could certainly pop off next season. That said, expectations are going to be high, and I can definitely see a world where this roster crashes and burns, so it'll be fascinating to see which way it ends up going. The Vancouver Titans, meanwhile, have certainly had some major rumours circulating above them, but these have been partly fed by the 2 only official announcements regarding player releases. The first of these is Tizzy. He was only a member of the Titans for a short time, but showed off his ability and quality by winning the starting job during the playoffs, putting in consistently solid performances that helped Vancouver make it all the way to the final. It's unfortunate to see him leave just after he was starting to grab hold of his opportunity, but it clearly signals that the Titans are looking to go in a different direction, and hopefully Tizzy will be able to get another chance moving forward. Alongside Tizzy, Vancouver have also announced yesterday they were letting go of Rappel. This wasn't too much of a surprise, given the rumours flying around, as well as the fact that he rarely got a sight at the starting spot, given he had to compete against Twilight. However, from the play I have seen, I can see potential he has, and if other rumours prove to be true, he perhaps may get another Overwatch League chance soon. At last though, we reached the final team that I need to cover, obviously being the Washington Justice, who despite announcing a lot of news early on this off-season, still revealed some new things recently as well. For those of you who didn't hear, the Justice have re-signed Ark for 2020, which I think is a smart decision given his ability and experience, as well as being able to help with communication between the mix of Western and Korean players that currently make up the team. Potentially he is set to pair as support alongside AimGod, who was signed after being released by the Boston Uprising, and I think this is a fantastic signing for Washington, in light of them releasing Sleepy. AimGod I believe is a great flex support, who has still been able to show off his ability despite the deficiencies of Boston. I think a new start and challenge was just what he needed, and considering that he's entering an exciting atmosphere and project that is on the rise, I am excited to see what he can do on what should be a much more competitive team. Rounding out their announcements, the team also revealed some coaching additions to their staff, in the form of Supreme and Wiz. Both seem to have a lot of experience both from the Overwatch League and contenders, and hopefully they'll be able to assist John Galt in making sure the Justice can take their improvement from 2019 and make themselves real challengers in 2020. Just as I'm about to finish editing this video, lo and behold I see that there's some very recent moves that I'll just mention here at the end, as especially for the first player, people don't get confused by what I've already said. So it's just been announced that Bischu will be in fact returning to the LA Gladiators. As you can imagine, Gladiators fans were thrilled to hear this news, given how likeable Bischu is, and overall it's great to see he's still getting opportunities in the Overwatch League. As for the move itself, I'm personally quite a fan of it, as it ensures the team is covered should anything happen to Space, and he'll probably be able to help a player like Birdring settle into the lineup, so I think it's a good little bit of business from the Gladiators. The other update that I want to discuss here is the other addition at DPS for the Land Terrain, as the rumours were confirmed that they were getting Sharp, previously from Envy. Sharp is an incredibly talented hit-scan DPS who has a crazy good Tracer and Widowmaker, and after grinding and showing off his potential in contenders, he's totally ready for this opportunity, which I know has made Reinforce a very happy man, even if I am surprised that Dallas didn't try and promote him from their academy roster. Now with the DPS line of Sharp, Edison, Erster and Baby Bay. Atlanta looks stacked on paper, and I'm really excited to see how much damage they can do in the Overwatch League next season, with so much talent across a variety of different heroes at the DPS position. And now even the New York Excelsior are getting in on the act, as they have also just made an announcement in regards to the other released Guangzhou off-tank, having just signed Hotba. With Meko leaving, I think this is a good pickup from the Excelsior, with a player at off-tank that might not be as strong on D.Va compared to Meko, but overall is stronger on the full collection of off-tank heroes. I'd probably still like them to bring in someone else just to give them more options and depth, but considering they haven't brought anyone in up to now, I think this is a good start from New York, and a great opportunity for Hotba himself. But with that, we finally covered, I hope, all of the off-season news from the past couple of weeks since my last video, and I'd like to thank you for watching, especially if you have made it all the way to the end of this video. I'll be back over the next couple of days with some other shorter ideas I have planned, so if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, then please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.